So I just actually taught this class at Unity out here in Mount Juliet, and today's class is going to be based really on love. And so when I was at the studio earlier, music doesn't translate well through Zoom, so I'm not going to play it, and you guys know it. I started off the practice playing the Beatles song, All You Need Is Love. And of course, everybody loves the song. And it reminded me of when we were in the original Half Moon studio. And I remember, Carlos, you were there. I remember when we had some sort of theme based on love. We played that song, and I remember everyone in the room like singing out all the lyrics, and it was so fun. But anyway, because our focus is on love today, I want to start off with the statement that you've all heard: hurt people hurt people. And the first time I ever heard that statement, and it was only a number of years ago, I remember really kind of sitting with that and thinking, wow, that's so true. It's when people are really feeling hurt and raw that they tend to lash out or hurt someone else. And I think that's a good thing for us to remember as yogis. And I read an article yesterday that it was so powerful and inspiring, and it may bring some tears to my eyes because it just happened. But I want to share it with you in case you didn't read the article. So it was either a week or two ago. I don't know if you saw in the news, there was a sixth grader who took a gun to school, and I can't even remember where it was. But when I heard that, I thought, wow, sixth grade? Like, I mean, it's a little bit more understandable if they're a teenager, because the psychology of a teenager, I mean, they're going through so many hormones and changes in the brain. And at that stage of your youth, you're a little bit more rebellious, or there's more bullying or things like that happening that could create some kind of cause and effect. But I was thinking, wow, a sixth grader, what could be going on in the sixth grade? Well, I didn't get too involved in the story, but yesterday I read an article concerning the teacher that played a big role in helping to basically defuse the situation. So I wanted to share that with you in case you didn't read the article. So evidently, another odd thing about this story is every time you hear about, these kind of school shootings, it tends to be a male. Well, this one was a female. And first of all, I was shocked to hear that, because when I heard the news a week or two ago, I didn't realize it was a female student that had opened fired. And so that was really unusual and caught my attention. And what happened was, this young girl had brought the gun to school, and she started to, I think she shot 3 people in the limbs, and they all survived, thank goodness. But when a teacher heard the shots going off, she stuck her head out into the hallway, and she saw the custodian, I believe it was the custodian, who was lying down. And so she shut the door, and she turned to her students, and in her room, there was a door that led outside. And so she told her students, she said, you guys have to leave, and you're going to run as fast as you can. Evidently, there was a high school close by. She said, whatever you do, don't look back, don't turn back, just go. And then she opened up the door, and they all fled. But she stayed. And not only did she stay, she went back into the hallway. And evidently, she saw a young girl that had also been shot. And so she first went to the young girl and basically told the young girl, that, she was there, and, help was on the way, to just, basically trying to comfort her. And then I don't know if she rounded the corner or if the girl holding the gun rounded the corner, but she realized who the shooter was because she was holding the gun. And so the teacher started to talk to her and said, were you the shooter? And I don't know if the girl said yes or if she was in shock. It didn't get that detailed. But the teacher went up to the young girl, and she started to rub her arm, and then continued to take her hand down to her hand that was holding the gun. She didn't just willfully give the gun over, but she didn't resist the teacher either. And so the teacher kind of pried it out of her hand. And then guess what she did? She hugged her. She embraced her. And she started comforting her and soothing her and telling her, we'll get through this together. Because in the teacher's mind, all she could think about is this young girl is hurting so much. This young girl is having some sort of breakdown. If her mother was here, right, her mother would give her unconditional love and support. And so the teacher took on that role and hugged her and embraced her and loved on her like a mother would. And she continued to hold her until the police arrived. She said while she was holding the young girl completely calmed down. And so when the police came, she willfully, got handcuffed. They took her away without any drama, without any more escalation of the problem. And that story was so impactful to me. First of all, the courage of the teacher. Second of all, it just shows the power of love, and I don't know what I would do in that situation. But it also reminded me of, I'll tell you one more thing and then we'll get on the mat. When I was a flight attendant, and I think I can say this information, I think, we were always told to keep it on the down low, but after September 11th, everything changed. The training changed as far as terrorism is concerned. But before 9/11, any type of terrorist activity that happened with planes, it was usually a hostage situation. They would take the plane hostage and the crew and the passengers hostage. And there might have been a little bit of fatality, and that was really more of a fear tactic. But the intention wasn't to take down the plane or to use it as a weapon or to kill all the people. Really, what the terrorists were wanting were some sort of exchange, an exchange of, we'll give you your passengers and crew members back if you release these people from jail or bondage of some kind. Or maybe they wanted ransom or money. So in the beginning days of my flight attendant training, we were taught, and it's been a number of years. I'm pretty sure, I meant to look it up, but I'm pretty sure we used what was called the Stockholm syndrome. And so in our training, they said, if this ever happens, basically try to create a connection with the terrorist. Look them in the eye, give them empathy, show them compassion, be interested in who they are and what their goal is, be interested in like their family, talk about their family, and then talk about your family, so that as you're sharing this story in this exchange with this person, you're developing trust. And think about the empathy and compassion that you would be showing in that situation could not only develop trust, but it could diffuse the situation. And all of that is based on love. Nowadays the training is completely different, because things have changed, the world has changed. But those are just a couple incidences where love really does make an impact. So we're going to get on our mat. We're going to do a yin flow. We're going to have a little bit more yin in the beginning and mixed within the sun sao that we're doing. And we're going to start actually in a pose. I don't think you need blocks today, but you can have them just in case. The pose we're going to start with is going to be the one you've done with me before, where the knees are bent and together, and your arms are going to lift up towards the ceiling, actually lifting the shoulders off the floor. And then you're going to crisscross the arms to the point where you're making more than an X shape, even beyond that. And then allowing the shoulders to melt back to the sticky mat and the elbows to point up towards the ceiling. And you don't want the arms to cover the face because it would block the breath, but you don't want them to flop towards the chest either. So if you could go ahead and get in this alignment. It doesn't matter which arm you cross over the other. And let your eyelids close once you're in position. And take time to emphasize your pranayama, your breath work. Breathing fully and deeply in and out through the nose. I wanted to start off with this position because it reminded me of an embrace. It reminds me of a hug. And that is something that we've been a little more deprived of through this pandemic. Having to maintain social distancing, being quarantined at times. And human touch is so important. We actually know that when babies and toddlers don't get enough human interaction and touch, like babies in an orphanage, they don't develop as quickly. They're behind developmentally, mentally, physically, emotionally. And it shows the importance of human touch. And even though we're no longer infants, if we're on up in age, we still need human touch as well. I remember a few months into the pandemic watching or reading something that was talking about this. And they said, if you live with people, make sure that you hug them or touch them somehow every day. Science actually shows if we're hugging for at least 20 seconds, which feels like a longer period of time when you're actually counting, but it can send off the feel good hormones to secrete in the mind and the body. Keep the breath open. Feeling the stomach swell on the in breath and fall in on the out breath. On your next inhalation, you're going to slowly open the arms nice and wide. And then you're going to bring the soles of the feet together and fan the knees open and apart. If there is too strong of a sensation already in your hips or inner thighs, feel free to slide the feet out and away from your body a bit more, or you can utilize props to assist. Now that the arms are wide open, see if you can follow and surf the wave of the breath up into your heart space, where we embody and emit love and things that stem from love, like empathy and compassion. Try to soften the muscles of the face. whether it's the crease between the eyes, the furrow of the brow, or your cheeks and your jaw. Next, in breath, we'll slowly lift the knees. Separate the feet a bit so that the knees can rock together, and notice what that does to the low back. And then inhale, you're going to reach the arms back up towards the ceiling, even if lift the shoulders away from the ground. Remember how you crossed the arms before, but now cross them the opposite way. Now the other arm is closer to the face. And then eventually, as you create that embrace, you don't have to hold your shoulders. The fingers can stay relaxed and just drizzle down. And then open up the breath of life. As the arms wrap across the midline, it's helping to open up 3 energetic channels that travel through the outseam of the arms. The large intestine meridian, the small intestine meridian, and the triple heater. Your eyes are closed, gaze in and up to your mind's eye. This helps to stimulate both the third eye and the pineal gland. On your next inhale, let's go ahead and release the arms. Separate your knees. This time you're going to pick the feet up off the floor and you're going to take a hold of the feet. So basically moving into the happy baby pose. Now, yogi's choice here, because in yin, you don't really have to put any effort into the pose. So maybe just catching your feet or shins is all you need today. Now, if you want to apply a little bit more effort, then you'll just use your upper arm strength to pull the feet down, which lowers the knees and stretches the hips. And then if you do that, I would go ahead and anchor the sacrum. If you're being yin and just creating a simple hold, it's actually okay if the buttocks curls up a little bit because there's no rules. Couple more breaths. Now, once you release the feet, slide your legs forward and out and stretch the arms overhead. Create that morning stretch. Sometimes we do this after Shavasana. Lengthen your leg bones, point through your toes. And notice how when you're stretching the limbs in opposing directions, you get that extra sway through the back. All right, now soften. Kind of press out through your heels, but soften your elbows. And start to travel the feet over to the right corner of the mat. At the same time, you're going to circle the upper body also to the right, making banana asana, body into a shape like a banana. You're trying to keep the same weight through the shoulder blades, the same weight down through the butt cheeks. In other words, you're not rolling towards one side. You're curving to the side. Keep replenishing that left lung that you're allotting more space for. On your next inhale, stretch the body through the midline of your mat. And then walk the feet over to the left corner and then sway the upper body to the left. Still laying on your backside, head in between the arms. Replenishing the right lung. And inhale it slowly. Come out of that position. And we need a counter. So let's bring the knees and tuck them in towards the belly and chest. So when you may have noticed that when you stretch out the body like we were just doing, it tends to exaggerate that natural curve in the low back. And when we tuck the knees in, even though the spine, the skeletal system doesn't change, the muscles surrounding it do. And so that's what you actually feel, kind of recline down to the mat, the sacrum and the muscles above it. Affirming here as you hold, I reduce my scattered forces to rise up and away into the sky. And the head is more clear and not as scattered, then we tend to drop more into our heart. When we drop down into the heart, then we can express the love. Remembering what that song repeats over and over again. All we need is love. Love is all we need. Then going back to that statement, hurt people, they just need some love. Now let's go ahead and roll over to one side of the body. And I know I've had you on your back for a bit, but we are going to come up to stand at this point. When we come up to stand, I want you to go ahead and align yourself at the top of the mat. And you don't have to root and ground the feet as much as we typically do in the active, since we're going to be more yin-like in the sun sow. So the hands are going to join together to the salutation seal. Seal in your hands and in your heart our intention to love more. And then inhale, sweep the arms to your sides and up, maybe coming to upward worship, gathering love from the universe, love from the divine, and bringing it down through center. And when you're halfway down, go ahead and bend the knees. Let your arms drape down. We're going to do dangling, the yin version of Uttanasana, or the forward fold. And I like to nod my head, usually one way or the other, or a blend of both, before moving to stillness. So you're welcome to do that too. And I would invite you to close your eyes. I mentioned gazing into the third eye can help to stimulate the pineal gland. A number of months ago, I did a whole series based on Dr. Joe Dispenza and the work that he's done, and how he emphasizes meditation, because meditation can stimulate the pineal gland, a gland that is located in the center of the head. And he mentions that through research, they've discovered, that, we already know things like fluoride can calcify the pineal gland, but it also tends to do that as we age. But what they've discovered is if you are a meditator, it has the reverse effect. Remember, the pineal gland is often associated with the third eye. Some people list it for the crown chakra. Either way, those two are the highest tiers of those energy centers. All right, on your next inhalation, we're going to step the left foot back. And when we step the left foot back, I want you to just keep your hands down to the floor alongside that right foot. If you need blocks, of course, you can bring it in. But we're going to be more yin with this. So instead of plucking the back thigh up like we normally do when we're active, we're just going to let a little passivity come into the back leg. In other words, you can just softly bend the back knee or just let it drag towards gravity. And notice that puts a little bit more pressure on the foot and it gives a little bit more stretch to the toes. Now go ahead and begin to lower the knee a fraction more, but it's still hovering. It's not quite touching down. And then sink it slightly lower. Again, it's still hovering. This is great work for the fascia of the foot as well as the iliopsoas. All right, let's go ahead and drop the back knee. And we're going to untuck the back toes, which will feel good after that, because that was intense, wasn't it? All right, you're going to keep that front knee in relative alignment over the ankle. It doesn't have to be precise and yin. And what we're going to do is we're going to stay on the top of that back foot. And you can, again, use your blocks if you need them, or just use your hands to press down, and then you're going to elevate the back knee again. But you're on the top of the foot this time. And I encourage you, if you have tight ankles, you know, you may notice in tabletop, we'll often say, you know, press down through your shins, the front of the ankles, the tops of the feet. And if your ankles are tighter, you'll have like a lot of space in between. And you may even have a lot of space now. But that will bring more mobility and flexibility to the foot. So this would be a great exercise to practice if you want to improve that. All right, go ahead and set your left knee down. And what we're going to do is drive the hips back, slide your right foot back so that the knee can come down to join the left. We're going to move into puppy pose. So keep your hips stacked over the knees. Your arms are going to walk forward. But instead of dropping the chest, you're going to keep yourself at a diagonal line from your wrist to your hips, similar to downward facing dog. Thus the name puppy pose. So in other words, the shoulder blades don't cut down into your chest. The ribs stay tucked in, and your belly hugs in. Magnify your breath. And remember, this pose is a great modification if you ever need it in downward facing dog. For instance, if something's going on with the knees or the feet, this might be a good alternative. Now, on your next out breath, we are going to sink down into melting heart. Now, this is where we do allow the shoulders to cut down towards the chest. We melt the chest down towards the floor. The elbows can even touch down. And you can determine today, do you want to reside on your brow or your chin? Neither one is fine, but definitely consider the state of your neck. And if this is too much for your shoulders, remember, if you have a bolster available, Bringing the head to the bolster and sliding the arms back a little bit can be a nice alternative. This gives a nice flush to the kidneys, a nice flush to the lymph nodes and the pits of the arms. Can help to lubricate the shoulder joints and receive the benefits of a back bend. Your next inhale, let's just keep the elbows to the floor if you can. And you're going to rock the hips forward, slide the feet back so that you're coming more or less into a Sphinx pose. Now you can determine, do you want to be active or passive in Sphinx? I'm actually going to lift up higher, and you can join me if you'd like. The hands are going to stay out and ahead of the shoulders, but you kind of dial the fingers out towards the corners of the mat and then pick up the forearms. And this is what's referred to as seal pose. This can be a lot of compression for the low back, so consider the state of your disc in that area of your body. Make sure that you don't feel any impingement in any of the nerves, because there's lots of nerve endings that travel through the spine and then branch off from there. So if you need to drop back to Sphinx, listen and honor your body. I usually suggest eyes closed in yin postures, but if you choose to keep the eyes open, set your gaze on one singular point. Exhale, we're going to roll down. Slide your hands back. Curl your toes under. So earlier this week, I think it was yesterday actually, I talked about Ashtavakra, a Vedic sage, and I continued the story. I've shared the first part of the story with you in the past, and then we talked about how he helped the king become enlightened. Now we're going to try to reverse ourselves from this position to come into Ashtanga Pranayama. So it looks like this. You push through your hands, slightly take your chest back and lift your hips up so that you're down on 2 feet, 2 knees, both hands, your chest and your chin. And then inhale, push up. We're not going to hold that one long. Untuck the toes and land in extended child's pose. Again, you can approach this position in an active or passive way. Consider a moment where you've been hurt by another person.
And is it possible to look past their actions and to realize they could have been acting out of hurt themselves? Can you extend love to them, forgiveness to them, compassion or empathy to them? And then also remember, sometimes it's easier to give out love than to receive love. So if your issue is receiving, then bring it home to yourself. Bring it home to your inner child. All right, we're going to move on. Let's inhale, rock up hands and knees. Exhale, downward facing dog. And find the blend of effort and ease in this pose. Yogi's choice to have eyes open or shut. But if they're open, fixated on one point. On your next inhalation, let's step that left foot through. Take your time to get there. Determine whether or not you need the blocks or not. And instead of really staying active with your back hamstrings plucking up, you're going to actually let the hamstrings start to get a little lax. So the back knee is slightly bent. And the back leg will start to feel heavy. But remember, heavy is part of the yin practice, whereas the active practice is about becoming light. And when you start to feel that heaviness, you can go ahead and give in a little bit and maybe gravitate the knee lower, but still hover. A little lower, but continue to hover. And eventually taking it down to the ground. Oh, and untuck the back toes. All right, this is where we're going to work with the ankles. So maintain your stance on the top of the back foot, and now float your back knee up again. All right, land it down. We'll close this out. Curl the back toes. Step or launch that back foot forward. Fold it down to dangling. Soft knees. Put as much of a generous bend as you need to into your legs. And maybe enough so that your abdomen, or at least the lower part of your belly, actually lands on your thighs somewhere. Now, if that, upsets your breath at all, you can back it up. But hopefully there's no hindrance there. All right, when you're ready, we're going to start. Keep your hands towards the floor as you bend the knees and elevate your heels to the point where you can safely and slowly come down to the floor. Now I'm going to turn to the right side of my mat, and you can do the same. And we're going to have the feet off to the left as we plop onto the right hip. We're going to lift up energetically, slowly start to spin and turn to face the remainder of the mat, walking your hands down it and lowering upon it. Spreading the arms and lowering down to one facial cheek. And you can even explore. The left side is going to be a lot more for your neck. And when I was younger, I could do that. But nowadays, I need it simpler. So I rest on the right. Do what feels good for your body. And slide your hands up underneath and press your way up. And then we'll just turn our body to the other side. Lift up energetically, spin around, and then come back down to the floor. The knees can be stacked or staggered. If this upsets one or the other shoulder, I've never had that problem, but I've seen some people like switch the position. And I'm demonstrating one that I've seen more often. So you can, move it around. It doesn't have to be exactly the way I placed you. Next inhale, slide your hands closer. Press your way up. That was our final position before Shavasana. So if you grabbed your blanket, your bolster to use for Shavasana, I'll let you choose your positioning. Since we were talking about love today, if you wanted to open the heart, you can, of course, use it for that purpose. And if you feel like your back's a little sensitive today and you need it more under your knees, then, of course, you can switch it up to that. We're going to use a mantra for today's Shavasana. And it's Aham Prima. Aham Prima. Aham Prima. And it means I am divine love. And I want you again to just reflect on the bravery and the love that the teacher showed during that stressful time. Aham Prima. It's a perfect demonstration of divine love. And just repeat that mantra in your mind. Until you no longer need it. And if the mind becomes crystal clear, you can let it go. Aham Prima. Aham Prima. Aham Prima. Let's go ahead and begin to enliven and deepen our breath. Maybe awaken and wiggle the fingers and toes. Bending the knees, rolling over. And joining me in a comfortable seat. Having the shoulders roll down the back. The palms spin open. Just tuning into yourself. Hopefully feeling a positive result from our practice together. And let's join the palms and lift the thumbs to the brow. The light and love within me honors and bows to the love and light within you all. Namaste.